Hello, true duelists. My name's Craig Fee, and welcome to the New Card Report. It's that time of the year when Jump Festa reveals 82 cards, and some of them are clearly really good, and some of them are clearly really bad, and the rest are just a lot of new random shit, like the new Ancient Fairy Dragon support coming in Alliance Insight. So go ahead and guess what this video is about. The worst signer dragon up until it was actually super secret the best one. So let's see what the FTK Queen has in store for us. Regulus the Fairy Beast is like Therian King Regulus in the metaphysical sense that it's named Regulus and is vaguely cat-like, and that's literally it. This level 4 light beast has 1700 attack, 1000 defense, and 3 hard once per turn effects. On normal or special summon, it can add any spell or trap that mentions Ancient Fairy Dragon from your deck to your hand, and during the main phase, you can special summon a level 4 or lower light fairy, beast, or plant type monster from your hand in defense position. And if it's in the grave, you can banish it to target a field spell in your graveyard, place it on the bottom of the deck, and then draw a card. Now that's a classic card you're looking at there with a Stratos effect for the spell and trap of the deck, so you're playing it almost guaranteed. And it has a grave effect that works well with the deck, and that's a cute plus. Granted, I'm saying that before I've read any other single card, but it works with field spells and mentions the FTK Queen, so I'm declaring myself to be right preemptively. It also randomly has Ancient Fairy Dragon's effect, but for 3 types and 1 specific attribute, which means uninterrupted, this can potentially get you an AFD by summoning a level 3 tuner, or any Link 2 or generic synchro by itself. Just don't run into Imperm. It's, at worst, the best card in a garbage deck, which is likely to be true if we approach this from the perspective of a 2009 player looking at Ancient Fairy Dragon, that being a vanilla 3000 defense wall. Spore the Fairy Cell is like the original Spore from back in the day, but now there's 5 of them, and it's not even remotely generic, not compared to the original Spore. This one is a level 1 light plant tuner with 400 attack and 800 defense, and if it's special summoned, it can increase its level by up to the number of monsters you control. And once per turn, if it's in your grave and you control Ancient Fairy Dragon, or a light beast, plant, or fairy, you can special summon this, but if you do, you'll be locked into only summoning synchro monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. It is always a level 1 to 3 tuner, as I understand it, if you're summoning it by its effect, since you can increase by up to the number of monsters you control, and if you summon it with its effect, you've got at least 2 monsters, which means you can increase it by up to 2 levels, putting it to 3. So it's a very flexible tuner from 1 to 3, and that's pretty damn abusable if nothing else. And with Regulus, it means that you can make the Queen mentioned by all the peons, Ancient Fairy Dragon. But why are there 5 of them? And which of these is the mitochondria that is the powerhouse of the cell? I suppose we'll never truly know, but as a flexible tuner, it's at least solid. Is it good enough to get around other generic synchro engines and decks? Probably not. Ancient Fairy Dragon Girl's deck is hot ass from the anime, but it is generic for synchro, so it's at least considerable as possibly an engine, which makes it at least better than Digital Bugs. My god, what a bar to have cleared. KuriBAD, the Fairy Spirit here, is a level 1 light fairy with 300 attack and 200 defense with 2 once per turn effects. If you control a monster that is or mentions Ancient Fairy Dragon, you can summon this from your hand, and if you do, it will be treated as a tuner. You do not get a choice. And if another monster you control that mentions the dragon or is the dragon will be destroyed by a card effect, you can return this card to the hand instead. This is a very crazy way to play around Torrential Tribute for the few times you might run into that, or to imagine being able to play around Torrential Tribute in 2009, as is another self-summoning tuner that's decent as long as it's searchable, and if this deck does not have a Rhoda, it's pretty ass, since hard drawing it doesn't feel likely in the world of 2025 Yu-Gi-Oh! And beyond. At least, not reliable. It's slightly less splashable since Ancient Fairy Dragon is a generic synchro that is used generically, but this one needs to be in the hand, and if you're going to tech one of these in, the literal 5 spores at least can be a generic Foolish Burial target, whereas again, you might potentially need to hard open this, which is what leading scientists refer to as stinky yucky bad ouch. Also, not visually distinct enough from the other version of it, the original one from way back in the day, and therefore I have nothing to compliment. 2 out of 10, let's move on. And now for the one we've all been waiting for, Ancient Fairy Dragon's Mega Evolution circa Game Freak Edition, Ancient Fairy Life Dragon. That may or may not be referencing Life Stream Dragon, but probably isn't, and I don't care regardless. This is a level 8 Light Dragon Synchro with generic materials to summon, and once per turn, if it's Synchro summoned, you can draw a card, or if specifically the World of Spirits is on the field, you can add a Light Beast, Plant, or Fairy type, or a copy of Eternal Sunshine from deck to hand. And while it's on your field, Ancient Fairy Dragon and monsters that mention it can attack in defense position. And if they do, their defense will be applied for damage calculation. Wow, that fucking sucks. This whole time I've been like, okay, so you summon Regulus, and then you get Spore in the grave, and then you summon it, and you make Ancient Fairy Dragon, and then if you get that new little KuriBAD, you can summon that and bust out the 8, because I already knew that it was a level 8, and as it turns out, in order to search those pieces out reliably, you have to make this thing that you're using with the pieces you would have already had to search. It just doesn't go anywhere. It's practically useless. Or maybe you search a trap card that'll cover later that's fine, but is ultimately forgettable. And the bonus is that your Ancient Fairy Dragon becomes the worst super heavy samurai monster. And sure, it gives it that quote-unquote buff with like 98 quotations on each side for all your monsters in this deck, but the original Ancient Fairy Dragon is the only other one whose attack is lower than its defense, except for the new Spore, which sits at a whopping 800. That's right, we have the world's shittiest cowboy for game. That is the new Spore card's purpose. The other buffed Signer Dragons at least had something strong going for them. Ruddy Rose had a dogshit name but did banish everything from the graveyards. Power Tool Braver got a quick effect to negate of sorts. Blackwinged Assault reworked Black Feather counters to be a burn strategy and could at least give a board wipe as a quick effect. And Ancient Fairy Dragon is a shitty super heavy samurai. It makes sense when you try to imagine coming up with a stronger Ancient Fairy Dragon, because the game already had that, the pre-errated version of Ancient Fairy Dragon. But I don't know why that means they had to make the new one exceptionally bad in my eyes. I suppose it's fair though. All it did was put on a shirt or Mega Evolve, but Game Freak killed Mega Evolution, so it doesn't count. Because much like Konami, Game Freak also hates fun. I don't know where this is exactly coming from, but it's underwhelming, and fuck Game Freak. That's the moral of this story. The World of Spirits is the new field spell for the Field Spell Dragon deck that on activation will add a monster that mentions Ancient Fairy Dragon from deck to hand, meaning the deck does have a Rhoda and there is at least a somewhat splashable engine of Regulus and the Spore and this to make a level 5 to 7 synchro. That's something. It also has 2 other effects, but both of them will require you to control a level 7 or higher light attribute dragon-type monster. The first will make it so that any monster that is special summoned in attack position will be switched to defense, and once per turn at the end of the turn player, it happens on both end phases, it will destroy all attack position monsters they control. The Floodgate. Not a particularly good one, but a floodgate nonetheless in the sense that it stops you from attacking with monsters the turn you summon them, and kills all link monsters if left unchecked. Assuming you have a, light synchro dragon. Its best trait is being a field spell and a Rhoda, and other than that, it's not particularly strong, and more than that, why not give more of your monsters a solid defense stat if you're going to make a discount super heavy samurai be your new playstyle? Or I guess your playstyle, since there wasn't really one unique to an archetype prior to this, but come on, Konami. Cater to the deck and make Shane Dawson happy by making the cat thick. Don't be cowards. Or just design better cards, one of the two. I do have a preference for one, and I will clarify that it's the latter. Up last is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind in a dueling sense. Shoutouts to 2004. This is a continuous trap that gives monsters you control 500 defense for each Ancient Fairy Dragon or monster you control that mentions it. So there it is, the whole strategy, I guess. And it has a second effect that can be used once per chain, a number of times per turn, up to the number of Ancient Fairy Dragons or monsters you control that mention it. And that's to target an opponent's face-up monster, have its attack and defense for the turn, and negate its effects. So there is a chance that you can get like 3 monsters on your board, and you'll get 3 negates, once per chain each, and all your monsters will get 1500 defense, so the cat will be a 2500 beater, and then you win the duel in a grind fest that looks very reminiscent of what people tell you Yu-Gi-Oh! Was like in 2002 because they don't understand Summon Skull Beatdown. That's crazy. And you know what? Honestly, on the same day, you could actually buy a winning lottery ticket. and find a hotel room, carve your name into a crossbeam, go to a wheat field, find a piece of volcanic rock, discover the secret location of Sawataneo, and build a boat with Tim Robbins. Or hang yourself. The options are wide and varied. And that'll be the mental experience of playing this deck when you run into a single effect veiler or imperm. To be clear, I don't hate this deck because it's bad, but I do hate this deck because all it's trying to do is be the most elaborate and underwhelming floodgate spread between 3 fucking cards. Nice. But hey, but to get there, you gotta assemble like all the Justice League's pets with all these lights and fairies and beasts and oh my's. Shoutouts to 1934's The Wizard of Oz? I don't know. That's cool. It's fun with friends and low power. I'm fine with that. It's floodgates inspired by Super Heavy Samurai. Go fuck yourself. Who paid to make this? Who paid to have this made? And who is paying to play it? This is as disappointing as learning that there would be no Mega Flygon or Mega Milotic in Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which was only second to the disappointment I felt when I played Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire and realized they didn't put in the goddamn Battle Frontier. Fuck you, Game Freak, and fuck these cards for reminding me of Game Freak. And so that wraps it up for this new card report. Nice and cheerful for the holiday season. I'm just covering the new cards in this one. The update will of course be out on Friday, as usual. Until then, I've been your host, Craig Fee, and make sure you subscribe to Yug Yug Straticans. Not only doing so will get you a impressing I'm having a stroke at this point. Not only doing so will impress your smoking Italian wife, but you will also immediately and contractually become a true duelist. And what could possibly... A lot of things could, actually. A lot of things could be better than that, but it's up there. You should give it a shot, if nothing else. It's literally free.